The biggest war that agents have with themselves every single day is consistency. So you have to simplify what it is that you're doing and get down to the real basics and core of what creates success for realtors. And it's the simplification and the clarity is what's going to unlock your true potential.
Welcome back to the Agents Who Crush It in Real Estate podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of the most successful and inspiring figures in the real estate world. I'm your host, Lindsay Favaza, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to an incredible individual who symbolizes innovation, dedication, and success in the real estate world. Joining us is Jim Remley, Realtor and Principal Broker of 3 John L. Scott offices in Southern Oregon. And for those of you that aren't familiar with them, they are one of the largest real estate firms in Oregon, where they annually, on average, close an astonishing 3,000 transactions. Jim has dedicated his career to helping agents and brokers accelerate their performance and reach new heights of success. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting in real estate, Jim's insights and strategies are sure to inspire and guide you to crush it in your own career. So let's dive in and learn from one of the best in the business. Welcome to the podcast today, Jim.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you today.
I'm excited to talk to you. I feel like your background is deep. You have a lot of knowledge. You've been in the business for a while. So let's start all the way back at the beginning. How did you get into the business? Why did you get into the business? And when did you get into the business?
So I've been in the business for 35 years. Don't let that scare you. I'm still in the trenches out there, still doing things, right? But I started when I was 19, and I was a college dropout, worked at a lumber mill. My buddy, graveyard at a lumber mill. My buddy talked me to get my license. I finished, he didn't. And I went to work for the first company I drove by on the way after learning I got licensed. And I quit my full-time job with $1,500 in a credit line and driving my Chevy Citation. That was my first days in real estate.
That is so funny. And now your buddy's probably like, darn, I should have probably stuck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. So you get your license and you're starting out, you randomly just drive by and go, I'm going to work there, which is hilarious.
Yep.
What are those first years like in real estate for you?
Well, my first 6 months was pretty rough, I will say, because none of the people that I'm 19 years old, all of my friends are not buying houses. They're not selling houses. They're going to parties and having a lot of fun in life, but they're not out there, socioeconomic.
They're not as serious yet. Yeah.
They're not ready to make that move. So I struggled for the first 6 months, but what I did do is I started learning from, I think, the best of the best. I read all the books that I could find. I went to the live seminars back then and listened to a lot of the people that I thought would make great mentors that were crushing it in the market. And I started modeling performance, and I targeted for sell by owners, expired listings, and mailings. I was huge in mailings and started to grow my own sphere of influence. And within the second 12 months I was in the business, I listed 150 properties.
Wow. So that's setting the bar kind of high for yourself. How do you kind of keep up with that after those years went by? Did you feel like at that point it just kept growing, or did you feel like there were some times where things would slip a little, or you'd feel like you had to kind of like regroup?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's never a straight line. It's like a buzzsaw, you have ups and downs, but overall your trajectory is continuing to rise. I was fortunate that I was one of the first, I think, in the nation, and definitely the first ones in Oregon to start to form teams. So back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was no teams really. It was mostly solo agents and assistants if we're lucky. So I had sold a house to a buddy of mine and we partnered up, and everybody's like, what do you mean you're partnered up? They couldn't quite understand. What do you mean? Well, why would you do that for? So we had an assistant, and it was us, and we were out there, leveraging our strengths and, creating a lot of success early. So, that's the way I was able to scale, I think, was by each of us having our own talents and skills, and we're able to scale and continue to grow.
Yeah. So when did that change, or did it change? How long were you guys in that partnership or team structure? And then what was next after that?
Yeah, great question. So the one thing I do coach when I'm coaching agents and brokerages now is when you form a team, you definitely always have to start with the end in mind and have an exit strategy. So the very first thing you do with the team is you say, what's this going to look like when we break up? Because we're not getting married. I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is not a permanent relationship.
Not that kind of partnership.
Not
Yeah.
that kind of partnership. So yeah, you definitely have the exit strategy in place. We're still partners in things today. I mean, we're still good friends 30 years later. But what happened is at 24, I was, we top producing agent for many, many years. At 24, I opened my first company with my partner. I mean, we definitely opened it together, brought our assistant over. It was me and him looking at each other in an empty building, trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. And that was a transition going from kind of production, solely production, to now my business model being not just production, but growing an office, whole different kind of model.
Having to rely on others, having to like right the ship, having it all on your shoulders, like it's a lot more to have to deal with.
Looks easy on the outside. Trust me, guys, it's not that easy.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced back then when it came to kind of growing the team or, getting more and more traction in that?
Well, one thing that I think everybody struggles with is, as realtors, we're all kind of a little bit egotistical, right? Especially as a 24.
You said it, not me.
The top producing agent, I was like, I know everything, and you just have this thing, and you think that everybody should be a reflection of you, and that's the biggest danger that leaders make, is trying to hire reflections and then be disappointed in who you hire, that they're not an exact duplicate or mini me, and it just doesn't happen. And this is the big problem that team leaders have all the time, and brokerage owners have. So early, I came to the realization, well, I can't hire a bunch of me's because it's just me out there. So I needed to hire complements that would help me grow and fill in the gaps of the things that I wasn't good at. So I think that's a lesson that I learned early. I also learned early that in running a brokerage, that you got to be careful who you're targeting and bringing onto the team. And here's why: because I would rent out a conference room every month. And I would fill it with people that were thinking about getting a real estate license. So I do a career night, quote unquote. And I get 50 or 60 people in the room. I talk for a couple hours and I get 10 people interested in getting their license. And then 2 or 3 would get their license. But the problem is that there's an 87% attrition rate in our industry. So 8 out of 10 of those people are going to fail, no matter how to get a coach, a mentor, a trainer, technology, branding, marketing.
And for so many reasons, they'll fail. It could be just a personal reason. It could just be that they're not the right fit. It could be so many different things. Yeah.
So that was a challenge for me. And then of the 2 that would maybe make it, one would say, well, I started with you, Jim, so I got to check out and see if the grass is greener somewhere else. Yes. So now you're left with 1 agent out of 10, all that time and effort and work. So, not about 5 years on, I'm a little bit of a slow learner. I pivoted and started recruiting experienced agents. And was my philosophy of looking at people that have been in business longer, 2 years, $2 to $10 million in production. I knew if I could help them go from 2 million to 4 million or 4 million to 8 million, they'd be ultimately loyal and refer me more agents. And that's how we grew from one office. My first company grew from 1 office to 17 offices, and we're the largest independent company in Oregon. And that I owned that company for several years and sold that in 2006.
How did you get to be the top office? Was training the biggest component for you? Because obviously training is important in coaching, but what were some of the things that got you to that success?
Well, when I'm coaching brokerage owners and team leaders, the one thing I always tell everybody, there's one metric, one number that you can hang your hat on as an indicator of your success or failure as a brokerage owner, team leader. And that is your per agent productivity number. So your per agent productivity number is taking all the closings in your group, dividing by the number of active agents you have. That's your per agent productivity number. And your per agent productivity number takes into account everything: your recruiting, your retention, your marketing, your branding, your training, your website, your technology, your staffing. Everything comes together and converges on that number. So if that number's low, then you have a challenge. The number's high, you're doing great. So everybody starts with a benchmark. So when I took over my last company that I took from 30 agents to 250 agents, so it became ranked in the top 500 companies in America, we started 7th in the market when I got there in per agent productivity. And it's a stepping stone up, right? Then we got to 6th, then we got to 5th, then we got to 4th, 3rd, 2, 1, and then number 1 in the state and one of the top in the country now. So it's a process, and it has to be super intentional. And part of what, like you just said, is making a decision. We're not gonna go after it. New agents, you might still accept 1 or 2 a year or something, but you're not targeting them. And then what are you doing with your experienced agents? What's the culture of your company? How does it feel to be in the company? What's your training? What's your mentorship? What's your bright line in the sand for de-hiring somebody? We have a whole dehiring process where we'll put somebody on a bubble, and you're either going to make it or you're not. But you're not staying here doing one transaction a year, right? So those are all the things that we put together.
So let's say we'll get into the advice now, because I'm really interested to hear how you would handle this kind of stuff. So let's say you have an agent who wants to start a team.
Yes.
And they want to start to recruit. They're ready to make it to that next step, and they're ready to take on what we said is very hard, but they're ready to do it. So what are some of the advice that you give to that person about hiring, finding the right fit? Like you had said before, not necessarily finding someone who's exactly like you, but maybe it's bringing someone in who kind of can, help you to be different and do different things. What is the advice that you give to those people?
So first step is you got to understand, why do you want to be a team? Right? What is your motivation to be a team leader? So if you're just thinking, I need to be a team because everybody else is forming teams, that's not the right reason, right? A team leader is a completely different animal than a solo agent. A team leader becomes basically a brokerage owner within a brokerage, or a brokerage within a brokerage, with a large degree. So you're running a lot of different things. You have a lot of different hats. So you got to make sure you're ready for the management role, right? You're becoming a manager, not just a salesperson. But when you're going through this process, I think it's really, really important that you understand that when you're hiring, the first and only reason why people are going to be attracted to come onto your team, and you just have to accept this is just reality, is that they want lead flow from you. That's it. And if you can't deliver lead flow to people on your team, you will not have a team very long. Yep. Your team will collapse pretty quickly, because they can just be a solo agent without leads. They don't need to be on a team without leads, and they're over split, right? So here's the reality. First and foremost, you have to be a rainmaker. And so that means you have to have more leads than you can handle before you have any business opening a team. Yep. I always use the bakery example, and I say, imagine you're a baker and you want to sell more donuts. What's your first step? Do you hire more bakers? No. Baking more donuts is not going to sell more donuts, right? So you have to figure that part out. So first thing is, you got to have your lead strategies dialed in. Second, behind that, just right behind that, would be that you have to have a systems in place already before you open your doors to your team. And what I mean by systems is, there should be a process for every listing that comes in, for every buyer that you touch, for every escrow that comes in, for the aftercare of a client. Your CRM system should be dialed in, website should be dialed in. So when somebody comes in, they're plugging in. It's not as if you're just saying, well, just go figure it out. No. They're plugging in. It's just like you have your own little franchise and you're running your system. So you plug people in, like a McDonald's plugs people in, a Subway plugs people in. You're plugging people into a system that exists. Now, it could get better, but it's got to have a starting point. So that's the two biggest things. Leads and systems are absolutely necessary. So
what's a way that someone can start to put together a system for themselves? Like what are some of the pointers that you would give to someone to kind of, here's where you need to start to put those systems together?
Great question. So there's a great book by Kenneth Blanchard, and in 1 Minute Management Method. And so with Kenneth, and he's got a lot of great ideas in the 1 Minute Manager, but with the one thing that I've taken away from that book is the 3D method of management and the 3D method of building systems. The 3D method is, first you have to decide what you would want if you were the customer on the other side of the fence. So if I'm a seller, I called the team, I want them to come over to my house, what experience do I want from that side of the fence? Then I outline it, like, here's the top 10 things I want, right? So I'm deciding as if I was a customer. Yep. The second thing is, I have to then actually discover what the client wants by asking current clients and past clients, hey, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What would you like to see added to my systems? Yep. And then third, you have to deliver a product that meets those expectations, right? So decide what you'd want, discover what the client actually wants, and then deliver on that value framework. And there's so many models when we look at this, like going to a restaurant. We would all say, I wish a restaurant would do this. Mm-hmm. Or an airline. I wish an airline would do this. I wish a hotel would do this. Yep. We just have to apply this to our own business model. And then I like to take the business and say, you got to slice it up into, it's like a slice of bread. A loaf of bread, you're going to slice it up. So there's a buyer component, there's a seller component, there's a follow-up component, there's a website, social media, all these aspects of your business. You slice one off and you say, okay, let's tackle this. And this is what we're going to do this month. This month, we're tackling our website. We're getting this freaking thing dialed in. Yep. The next month, I'm going to slice off social media. We're going to get this thing dialed in. We're going to systemize. I slice off sellers, buyers, the whole thing. So that over time, I get systems. And when people hear systems, it becomes overwhelming. But all a system is a checklist. So everything that we're doing should have a checklist attached that your staff follows every single time they're doing a task. They'll memorize it over time, but in the beginning, it's check, 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 done. And actually a manager should be checking off to make sure they've done the work.
Yeah. So now the team member comes in, they get these
Yep.
checklists, they have this established process, and they're learning from their team leader, which is what they are coming. So like even what you said about the client, now the team member that's coming in, they're kind of a client too. It's like, what do they need? What is it that they're looking to get out of this relationship? Because the more they learn and the more they feel indebted to that team leader, they're not going to want to leave. They're going to want to continue to work with them. They're going to want to continue to have that relationship. And, I think that it's probably natural, and you can speak to this way more than I can, but it's probably natural for most people to come onto a team and then at some point feel like they need to move on. So, coming in with the exit strategy, like you mentioned before, having that team member, maybe is that something that a team leader should be talking to that person about ahead of time, kind of setting the expectations for what they're going to teach them and how those next steps will work? Or do you think people do that as a team leader, or is that something that they shouldn't do?
No, I think that's smart. All team leaders have the dream that these people are going to come on the team and be there forever. Generally, that's not going to happen.
If they're really good, they're not going to, right? No. I mean, that's kind of the way it's going to go.
The life cycle of a team member, in my experience, is 1 to 2 years, 2 years of being outside, right? So if you're honest about it and you're just upfront with it and you say, hey, I'd love to have you here forever, first of all. But while you're here, I'm going to train you and coach you and with the goal that you stay forever. But if you leave, that's okay. But we have to have an exit strategy for you to leave the team. So here's what our exit strategy is for you to leave the team. And it's got to be defined. A couple of things you have to define in that exit strategy, which by the way means you have a contract with every team member coming on. It's not a handshake. It's an actually in writing document. And so the document's going to say, hey, what happens with people that you met through my marketing? Who owns that client? Just because you have a relationship doesn't mean you own that client. That client stays with my database. Yep. All these things. Are you allowed to contact these people after you leave? No, you're not. That's going to be a violation. So you got to outline all these things, and then they agree to it. They're like, okay, here's the rules of the road. You can leave at any time. I'm gonna bless you on the way out. I'm gonna wish you the best. I'm gonna give you a great endorsement. I'm gonna do everything I can to support you. I may even still refer you some deals, but you got to live up to this line of rules. And if you can't do that, don't sign this, right?
Yeah.
So you really get I think clear. You have super clarity about it. And transparency. People like transparency. People like clarity. Absolutely. On the flip side of this, real quickly, is that how do you keep people as long as possible on your team? The way you keep people as long as possible on your team is going to be by giving them growth opportunities. So here's an example. You put somebody into a buyer agent role or maybe a showing agent. That's like the lowest tier generally. Yep. Either it's an admin, but if it's on the sales side, showing agent being like the lowest tier. This is where you're starting. You're just showing homes. You're not writing offers. You're just showing. Then there's a progression of moves. Like, what's the next step? Well, then you can move up to a buyer's agent, right? Then you can move up to this level. Then you can move up to this level. And maybe the apex point is listing coordinator or something, but you figure it out. And you give them the movement. And I would recommend that in a team setting, the ultimate goal, if you have a larger team, 5 to 10 agent team, the ultimate goal is cross-training with team members across the board so everybody can do each other's jobs over time. The idea is you give them a way to grow within the team. And I think that's really, really critical.
Absolutely. And then, maybe it's that they're actually at a different split at that point. They're on their own, but they're under your team. They're still, you know what I mean? And then they don't want to leave because they feel cushy and they feel like they can always kind of like, fall back on stuff from, their team leader. And then maybe that path makes it so that they don't want to leave,
Absolutely.
I love that. And I love the fact that, someone is more than likely listening to this that was considering starting a team. And now they're going, oh God, there's a lot more here than I bargained for. And, maybe some of those people probably should have thought it through a little bit more. So maybe, yes, do that. But what is your advice to those people of like, they also have to kind of try it. They have to start to do these things if that is the dream that they have, right? I mean, what's the thought process there of whether or not they should move forward or they should hold off?
A couple of things on that really quickly is that one of the most common things that I see as a broker leader is that two people in the office, two agents in the office will want to come together and form a team together. So there's different forms of teams, right? That's more of a partnership arrangement. And that's super common. And their thought process is we'll come together and be a team and we'll get all these benefits from being a team. And I always say the same thing to them. That is going to be a challenge because let's say one person's doing 2 million, one person's doing 5 million. The person that's doing the 2 million gets a great benefit here. The person doing 5 million, not so much.
Yep.
So there's a problem there, because what you have to have is, it can't be 2 + 5 = 7. $7 million is the same production you guys were both doing before. You'd have to say, what's my goal? I got to get to 10, 15, 20 million for this to make sense. Number one. But number two is, I don't think just you two sitting in office and seeing each other for 15 minutes a day is the same thing as being in a team. So let me give you something to do. And I always challenge them with this. I say, here's what you're going to do. You guys are going to get in a car together, and you're going to drive 4 hours in either direction. I don't care where you're going. And you're going to have lunch and do whatever you're doing at the end of the 4 hours. Then you get in the car and you drive 4 hours back. No radio, nobody on their phones. You're just going to talk for 4 hours one way and 4 hours back. And then you tell me if you still want to be in a team together, because that's a whole different thing.
Yep.
And then then if they can survive the 4-hour test, I'll say, now let's level it up one more time. And before you form the team, is have your spouses met each other, your significant others, or their boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. Have you guys met together? Because now when you're a team, suddenly now you're a family to some degree.
Yeah, you are.
Have you guys gone to dinner? Do they like each other? Or they're going to want to hang out with each other? Because this is going to be a problem if you guys don't get along. So let's put this together, because it's a marriage of sorts. It's a work marriage.
Yep.
So those are some things I recommend when people are forming a partnership. But partnerships are extremely rare to succeed. I mean, like 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000 of those will succeed. I mean, it's extremely rare for them to succeed.
Yep.
I've got one of those groups in my office where partnership has truly worked, but most of them blow apart really fast.
Yeah.
The most successful team is a pyramid. You got a leader at the top, and they're the captains of the ship, they're the quarterback, and they're giving directions. They're the alphas in the room, and they're like, you do this, that, this, that, this, that. Yep. The only time the partnership style works is generally husband and wife, where there's some relationship there, or it's a blood relationship.
That's what I was going to say. There's a lot of partnership husband and wife teams, and usually they've been husband and wife for long enough to know that partnership is pretty strong, I would hope. That would make a lot more sense. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I hope that anyone who's listening right now is taking notes, because wow, that is really, really good advice. So tell me, from more of a brokerage level of recruiting, what are some advice that you give to broker owners on getting great talented agents to want to join? I'm assuming the basic thing is the same as a team. It's have to have systems, have to have leads, right? Or like, is leads not as important for an experienced agent and it's something else?
Well, here's the thing with experienced agents. A lot of times the natural inclination as broker owners is to say, well, it's all about commissions, right? That's the default. Like, we have to have the lowest commission plan or the best cap in the market. And that's absolutely not true. Because if that were true, everybody would work for the lowest cap company in town, right? Or the discounter in town. So it's not about your commission plan. Commissions matter. You got to be competitive, of course. But what's going to matter more, and what's going to drive any experienced agent's decision to join your company, is their ability to close more transactions with your company than they will at their current company. So can you show them and prove to them that I can help you close more transactions? Because where you're at, 100% of nothing, still nothing, right? So if you're closing 2 deals a year where you're at, great, and you got 100% commission, fantastic. But if you can come over to me and we can help you close 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16 deals a year, guess what? Now you're actually making a living. You're making an income. And it doesn't matter that you're not on a 100% split, as long as you're taking home more money. So the net is the key. So when agents ask me and they say, Jim, why should I join your company? The easy answer for me is always the same thing. I say, listen, the only reason you should join any company, mine included, is if I can help you make more money or I can make your life easier. I think I can do both, but I need 20 minutes of your time to walk you through my entire kind of program on what we can offer you. And I think I can really show you how I can help you make a lot more money in the next 12 months if you're willing to sit down and talk with me. And that's kind of my approach to it. And so your value proposition as a brokerage owner, you need to treat it just like a listing presentation. You need to have a recruiting presentation. It's got to be, very systematic. Here's what we offer. And it's got to be hard benefits. And the default for a lot of brokerage owners is, well, we're a family and it's a great culture. And that's all great. But that's not going to pull somebody over the fence. That keeps agents.
And that's not going to make them more deals.
Yeah, it's not going to make them more deals. That'll keep agents there once they're there. But to get them over the fence, it's got to be hard value. What I like to call proprietary differences. What is it that you're doing that's unique in the market that's different than where they're at? So that's sometimes a challenging thing to like walk through. But you really have to think about it. And otherwise, you're just a commodity. You're just like every other brokerage in town.
Yeah. Yep. What are those differentiating factors? Why should they leave? It's a big deal to leave a brokerage. It's a big deal. It's like the only other way to describe it is that it's like buying a house or selling a house, right? Like it's a big transition. It's a lot of things you have to prep for. It's a lot of things that come up, and it's a big decision. So they need to know what the, actual things are that they're going to get and that are going to help them when they make that move. They're not going to do it blindly.
No, they're not. Right now, when I'm coaching, I just had a brokerage coaching meeting yesterday morning. The top 3 motivators for people to make a change today, right now in today's world. And we have one of the best recruiting opportunities in the last 10 years.
Yep.
That's the NAR settlement. The NAR settlement is going to drive a lot of movement in our industry. Because there's a ton of brokerages that are just putting their head in the sand and ostriching it, and they're just not doing anything with this, and they're just waiting out the clock. And the agents in their companies are getting nervous and panicky, and they're like, I don't know what to do next. The offices that are winning are the ones that are doing tons of training and coaching and mentorship, that have rolled out buyer presentations, that are walking people through buyer representation agreements, that are doing scripts where they're doing role playing in the offices, and all those kinds of things that are going to make a difference. And agents are recognizing that. So that's a huge, huge opportunity right now. Use that NAR settlement as an advantage, not a disadvantage. The second thing is curated leads, and that's different than just leads. So lead flow, it could be, I'm going to give you a lead, but it's a cold lead with low intent. And that's like a 0.5% close rate, some Facebook lead or something. I'm going to hand that over to you. And that's a low intent, very low close rate. So I got to work through 100 or 150 of those to get one deal as an agent. Very, very cold lead, not good lead. The next level, what the top brokerages in the country are doing, are curated leads. In other words, somebody's working that lead till they become more high level. Then it's a live handoff, or maybe even an appointment set for the agent, and they're getting a curated high level lead. But that's not free, right? It costs the brokerage money. So the brokerage has to charge for that. Sometimes that takes that lead back down to a 50-50 split, which is totally reasonable. And, a lot of times that's what it is, or it could be a 25-75 deal, whatever your model is. But there's a fee in exchange for that. So curated leads. And the last thing is digital presentations, super important. Digital marketing in general is massive. And the offices that are really winning have a great marketing department and are delivering great branded marketing materials that are digital to their agents. So buyer presentation, seller presentation, relocation packages that are totally customizable for the agent. That's the winning combination.
Yep. That tech, very important.
Yep.
So we're almost done. I told you we were going to do this and it was going to feel like it was flying by. So we're almost done here, but I wanted to ask in closing, what is your advice for realtors in today's market? Not team leader or broker owners that are trying to bring people in, but really what is your overarching advice for agents in this business right now of navigating what is the next, few years of kind of this tumultuous, as you said, the saw blade, right? How do they navigate that? What is your advice for them?
Well, my best advice is everything seems complicated, right? There's so many things I could be doing. If I'm on the social media, there's a billion, trillion different things being thrown at you. Do this, do that, do this. And agents tend to squirrel. And we're like, red light, let's go this way, let's go that way, let's go this way. And they get lost in the weeds. They get caught up in secondary priorities, and they don't get the big things done that they need to get done. So the biggest war that agents have with themselves every single day is consistency. And so do brokerage owners as well. So you have to simplify what it is that you're doing and get down to the real basics and core of what creates success for realtors. And it's the simplification and the clarity is what's going to unlock your true potential. So I'll give you an example. What we coach to is we say, okay, I want you as an agent to identify your 5 non-negotiables. What are the 5 things that you have to do every single day to ensure your success? It's going to be different for every agent, but it's got to be highly specific. So maybe I'm going to call 10 people in my sphere of influence today. Maybe I'm going to send 1 unsolicited CMA every single day. Maybe I'm going to post something on all my social every single day. Maybe I'm going to send 5 thank you cards every single day. Maybe I'm going to add some people to my sphere of influence. Maybe I'm going to do an open house every week, whatever it is. You determine what it is. But these are the 5 things I do every day. When I wake up, there's no decision making. The biggest danger agents have is to wake up and not have clarity on what it is that they have to do every day. Because then they go in search of it. And when they go in search of it, they go down rabbit holes that take them nowhere. You have to have clarity, come into every day, clear, path to performance. And then the second thing is you don't get the luxury of doing anything else until the 5 things are done. The luxury comes when you got 10 deals in escrow, when you got 10 listings, when you got 10 buyers in your corral. Then you get some luxury. Then you can make some other decisions and kind of play around. But until you're there, a lot of agents are like flirting with being unemployed all the time. They're like got one deal in escrow, they got one listing, they got one buyer, and they're out here playing with things they have no business playing with. They got to get dialed in. That's my biggest message is get clarity, to have those 5 non-negotiables set up. And just really quickly, as far as those non-negotiables, what we train to is what we call the 4-1-1-1-1 strategy, which means 1 hour a day, uninterrupted lead gen. That's every single day. During that hour, we're setting, the goal is to set one appointment with a buyer, seller, or Sphere member. Sphere members' appointments are just as good as a buyer seller member, or appointment, I should say, because we're setting one appointment, we're going on one appointment every single day. And then the last thing is we add one person a day to our sphere of influence. That model right there will create massive success for any agent that implements it.
Yep. I love this. So, I mean, anyone who's listening right now is definitely taking notes, and if they're smart, and they're not driving, and they are, excited about what you've just taught them, and maybe they want to learn more about how they can learn more from you. So, tell us a little bit about what this next venture is now that you're doing, and where they can find you, and what information you can provide to them about your coaching.
Yeah, so we have a incredible coaching program called like elephant, realestatecoach.com. And there for agents, we've got a coaching platform called the Path Performance Coaching. Same coaching I take my own agents through. 20 weeks of intense coaching every day with me for 20 weeks straight, like 15-minute coaching nuggets. Every morning you win the day early with some ideas. We give you downloads, hundreds and hundreds of downloads associated with everything. So if I'm talking about a text, an email, a script, you can download it instantaneously. And then we give you 3 live coaching sessions every single week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And all of that, this first month is only $1. And so we get you in there and we just let you test drive the program, see if you like it, and then you can decide if you want to stay in it.
Wow.
For brokerage owners, we have an incredible program for brokerage owners that focuses on experienced agent recruiting. So that's our whole focus. And then retention is course, but we meet with them twice a month in a mastermind session. And then they also get one-on-one coaching with me. And then all of their agents that work for them also get all of my coaching for their agent, what I just mentioned, as a part of the program. So it's a great value. And if anybody's interested in something free on the recruiting side, if they hop over to eReal Estate Coach, on the top, they'll see we have a webinar called Rockstar Recruiting. It's a 2-hour webinar filled with scripts and texts and emails and all kinds of strategies from the top recruiters in the nation. Absolutely free. Just check it out and they can see what they see.
We're going to have your links in the show notes. We'll have links to that. We'll put the actual link to that into the show notes as well. And, Jim's Facebook is right there too on the screen. So feel free to go to his Facebook and reach out to him. This has been absolutely awesome. I had no doubt it would be, and it was more than I expected. So thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
I know that everyone learned a lot today. And, it wasn't just learning from being an agent, but it was learning for broker owners. It was learning for team, leaders, people that want to grow a team. It was learning for a team member joining a team. Like, they need to know that they need to have a contract. So there's so many great nuggets today. So I really appreciate it. I have a feeling this is going to be an episode that people listen to multiple times because they're like, wait, I missed something. I got to go back. So whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening to us on the podcast, please feel free to, listen over and over and over again, and also share it. I'm sure that there's other realtors that can, benefit from hearing from this today. So Jim, thank you so much for taking the time and being a part of this. Any closing thoughts that you have?
No, I just, it's been a pleasure to be with you. Great interview, and you do a great job on your side. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate that very much. And like I said, you guys can reach out to him. We'll have everything in the show notes. And if you're interested in being a guest also, please reach out to us. We are at crushitinre.com/podcast. You can listen to all the episodes and you can reach out to us if you're interested in being on the next episode. So thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And Jim, have a great weekend. We thank you very much. All right. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Agents Who Crush It in Real Estate podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Agents Who Crush It in Real Estate podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with your friends and colleagues, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you're interested in being a guest, email us at info@crushitinre.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to crush it in real estate.